welcome to the Festival of Storytellers. I thank everybody that's involved with this process because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers.
Experience is not about the publisher, it is about us, the authors.
Well, good morning. I'd like to welcome you all back to my booth here at the Festival of Storytellers. We left Lucius yesterday. He was in a bad spot. One of his servants, Marguerite, who was from España, what is today Spain, has received a letter saying that one of her parents, her mother and her brother, have been found. And she requests permission to return to España to be with them. Of course, Lucius tells her she's a free woman, she's free to go. But so great was her respect for Lucius that she would not leave without his blessing. So she leaves, and now Lucius is confronted with a very grievous decision. He has to go back to the slave auction, a place which he desperately hates. And he has to find another housekeeper. So we're going to pick up there today. Lucius has returned to the slave auction. And he says, upon entering the slave auction, Lucius panned the scene before him. Nothing had changed. Nothing ever changed in this horrid place. Hundreds of helpless people, eyes downcast, chained together, waiting to meet their uncertain futures. Then suddenly his eyes lit upon a young woman. The look on her face was one of total defiance. Yet Lucius could see a childlike fear behind her eyes. Lucius began to make his way toward her, when suddenly the slave merchant, bringing a rather rich and portly man behind him, stopped in front of her. Now here we have a strong one, said the merchant. But we've had her back several times. Seems she's rather high-spirited. The portly fellow laughed out loud. I rather enjoy high-spirited slave women. With that, the portly gent reached down and jerked the girl up by the nape. What have we here? He laughed. Then he grabbed the young woman's tunic as if he would tear it completely down the front. Though her hands were chained, with a sudden lightning stroke, she knocked his hands away, then spit directly into his face. In total shock, the man screamed out, "You whore!" and he slapped her across the face with the back of his hand. The young woman reeled but kept her balance. Then she recoiled in fury and with both hands clenched together, struck the portly man in the face. So powerful was the blow that had sent the fat man to the ground. The merchant and his servant rushed over to help him back to his feet. Lucius could see blood running down the side of his mouth. The sight of shock on the big fat man's big fat face amused Lucius and he chuckled out loud. At last the portly gent cried out, "I should have you flogged for that." To which the young woman answered in a tone of defiance, "Do it." Lucius stepped up that moment. "How much for this one?" The merchant gave Lucius a rather sheepish look. "Well, General, this man showed interest in her." "I'm so sorry," Lucius exclaimed. "I did not realize." "That is quite all right," the portly man replied. "I would not want the whore if she were given me." "I will give you 60 for her," Lucius offered the merchant. 60, the merchant replied. 60. That is my final offer. Take it or leave it. "General, do you know what you're getting into with this one? We have had her back twice before." 60 is my final offer," Lucius repeated. "General, you can have her for 60, but this one is trouble. I will set your money aside for when you bring her back." Lucius grabbed the woman by the arm and led her away. As they approached the cart, the young woman espied Arius securing vessels. She stopped abruptly in her tracks and tried desperately to pull away from Lucius. Lucius, for all of his strength, was barely able to hold on to her. In desperation, he finally picked her up and carried her to the cart. All the way to the cart, the young woman kicked and beat Lucius about the head with her fist. One of the blows was of such violence that it knocked the helmet from Lucius's head. With no small effort, Lucius finally lifted the young woman onto the cart. In an attempt to comfort the young woman, Arius placed his hand upon her shoulder. Leaning toward her, he said softly, "Calm yourself, my lady. No one is going to do you harm." The young woman wielded and threw out her fist with such force that it sent Arius falling off the cart. "Don't ever touch me again," the woman screamed. With that, Lucius grabbed the woman's arms and pinned them to her sides. Lucius looked directly into the woman's face. "My lady, please calm yourself. I do not want to tie you, but if you will not calm yourself, you will leave me no choice." The woman pleaded, No, please, don't tie me." "All right, then. Are you well, Arius?" By this time, Arius was on his feet. "Yes, Master Lucius, I am well." Slowly and cautiously, he took his place beside the young woman. Lucius walked over. "Oh, David Rosenbaum. Always a joy to be in your session, Pastor. History, especially Roman history, interests me a lot. Good to have you with us, Mr. Rosenbaum. Good to have you with us this morning. Thank you for your kind words." "All right, then. Are you well, Arius?" By this time, Arius was on his feet. "Yes, Master Lucius, I am well." Slowly and cautiously, he took his place beside the young woman. Lucius walked over and picked up his helmet. While he put it back on his head, he noticed a rather large crowd had gathered. "What are you people looking at?" he shouted. "Move along!" With that, he climbed back into the cart. Things haven't changed. You always have gawkers. Wherever something like that happens, you have the gawkers. After a brief, rather uneasy silence, the woman straightened up. She darted a fierce glance from side to side. "Do you think I have never been forced, Roman?" "Well, I have," she said, answering her own question. "I have had 2 masters before you. Both forced me, they and their filthy spawn. And they all bear the scars of their folly. Roman, you and your pet here will suffer the same fate. You may force me, but I will never willingly submit to you. I will scar you both, as I scarred all the others. But I will never willingly submit. Perhaps when you bring me back to that hellhole, they will finally realize they cannot profit from me and will kill me. I hope they will kill me, for I want to die, because I am already dead inside." With that, she buried her face in her hands and wept bitterly. After several minutes, Arius could no longer stand to see the young woman in such anguish of soul. He placed his hand gently on her back and implored her, My lady, please stop crying. Please. Suddenly, the young woman, sensing his touch, sat straight up and glared at Arius. Arius raised both of his hands in a posture of submission. The young woman began to wipe her tears. I'm sorry. How thoughtless of me. I'm sure you would want me to be pretty. To have red, swollen eyes would not do. Tell me, have you any perfume in these vessels? After all, I want to be at my best when you forced me, you disgusting vermin. But that she clenched her fist and drew back to throw a blow. Arius jumped from the cart, and Lucius grabbed her hand. Stop it! That's enough, he shouted. The woman turned and glared at Lucius. Suddenly Arius shouted, Why will you not believe us, my lady? We wish not to harm a hair on your head. I wish to know only one thing of you. Oh, I have Harriet D. Clark. Hi, Michael. Lucius is described as a man of renown with a family of military lineage. As old as Rome itself. How did you balance the historical context with the need for creating a reliable and authentic character in Lucius? Thanks. Well, I wanted this man to be a Roman's Roman. Not just any Roman soldier, but a Roman soldier with a lineage that a pedigree that went way back, a man whose family was known for its military service and commitment to the empire. And in that way, I could weave the story about this is a Roman's Roman. And he's not just an ordinary soldier. He's a career man. He's a man whose military lineage is passed down from father to son. And even though he was so committed, he still had so many questions and so many doubts as to if Roman policy and Roman law was really just for all people. And as we can see right here, he feels slavery is unjust. In the Roman Empire, there were more slaves. There were more slaves in Rome than there were Romans. So you can see that a man who feels this is unjust, I mean, that's almost a man who would say slavery is unjust in Rome. I mean, that would be almost paramount to, treason in his day. So this was a really remarkable man who stood for the right, and he didn't care what people thought. And just because he was a soldier didn't mean that he literally lockstep with everything that the empire stood for or believed. We see here Arius asks a question. Will you not believe us, my lady? We wish not to harm a hair on your head. I wish to know only one thing of you. The young woman relaxed and faced Arius. What will you wish to ask? Without a moment's hesitation, Arius asked, Can you cook? The woman sat in dumbfounded silence, when suddenly a voice behind her asked, Well, can you cook? She looked at Lucius, then back at Arius. Yes, I can cook. Arius smiled. Are you any good? What kind of question is that? The woman shouted. Arius bowed himself. Forgive me, my lady, but both Master Lucius and my brother Mark can cook. The problem is simply that what they cook cannot be eaten. Lucius answered sharply. Arius says most unkind. That is a most unkind comment. Mark and I do our best. Forgive me, Master Lucius, I know you do. But in truth, your best is not very good. For the first time, a look of amusement came across the young woman's face. I can cook very well, she answered most confidently. Arius lifted his hands to heaven, a look of pure rapture upon his face. The heavens be thanked for this, he cried out loudly. Arius, we must be on our way, Lucius called. Arius stood and shook his head. I fear that one, he said mistrustingly. The young woman smiled for the first time. It was a most beautiful smile. She patted the seat and beckoned for Arius to come. I promise I will not hit you again. Arius smiled. I believe you, he said, climbing onto the seat. He looked the young woman in the face. You have a beautiful smile. You need to use it more often. He picked up the reins, and they were off. Their first stop was the clothing merchant to buy the young woman new clothes. Then off to the market. The Roman market was a wondrous place. Anything a soul could desire was there. Foods and animals from all over the empire, tools and planting seeds for farmers. The place was a wonder of noise and activity. I have Miss Red Sumil Eloreg. Please forgive me if I mispronounce that. I think you need to have an audio version of this book. Do you know something? I agree with you 100%. And I've been in contact with the audio people. Unfortunately, at this time, it's way too expensive for me. So I'm hoping that maybe at some time I'll be able to afford the audio book. But at this time, it just doesn't fit into the budget. But I thank you for saying that. It is on the docket. As they walk through, they come to the market, and the woman is there with Lucius. It was a place of wonder, noise, and activity. Arius jumped from the cart and led the horse to the hitching posts. Lucius turned to the young woman. He removed a bag of gold coins and handed them to her. She looked at him, seemingly confused. You shall be in charge of buying the food for the house, since it is you that will be cooking. She looked at him. An uneasy look crossed her face. She acted as if some trap was being laid for her. Do you trust me with this, Lucy? Do you trust me with this? Lucius spoke to the young woman in a soft, gentle tone. I do not know what happened to you in the houses of your former masters. It is not necessary for me to know. The one thing I need you to understand is that no one in this house will ever hurt you. I know you're afraid and trust no one, but please give me a chance to give us a chance to prove ourselves to you. Lucius saw the fear in the young woman's eyes, yet behind the fear, he could see hope that what he said was true. The young woman led the way into the market. As Lucius and Arius watched, they could easily tell that she knew her way around. She was very selective in her purchases and purchased wisely. Lucius had no doubts, but that she indeed could cook well. As they walked through the market, Arius leaned toward his master and whispered, I do believe she shows a great deal of promise. Lucius nodded in agreement. When all the food and provisions were purchased and loaded into the cart, the three headed for home. The young woman took the money bag that Lucius had given her. The bag was still half full of coins. She laid it onto his hand. Oh, Donald Rosenbaum, I think I've said this before. The book can be a good narrative for a movie. Well, I've had several people call me up and say, that they like to promote it to a movie producer. And that's very, it makes me feel good. But in truth, I would rather sell the book first. I would like the book to be sold first before we talk about any such thing as a movie contract or making it a film. So we see the cart That now they head for home. They get home, they get to Lucius's quarters, and the cart came to a stop. The door opened, and Mark came out to greet them. The appearance of Mark once again caused the young woman's spine to stiffen. Lucius whispered her again, "No one in this house is going to hurt you." With that knowledge, she once again relaxed. "Master Lucius, Arius, welcome. I see you've been to the market." "Yes," responded Arius. "We'll eat well tonight." Lucius stepped down from the cart, then helped the young woman down. Mark greeted the young woman. "Welcome to our home. I am Mark. What is your name?" "I am a slave. I have no name." Lucius instructed Arius to take in the provisions. Then he instructed Mark to settle the young woman into her quarters. Lucius had business to attend, but would return in time for supper. Mark took the pile of new clothes with the most cheerful countenance, and he instructed the young woman to follow him. We have Julia. How does the book portray Lucius's internal struggle, fulfilling his duty to Caesar and honoring his father's ideals? Well, you see, Lucius had a tremendous inner struggle. He believed in his father's ideals, as treasonous as they were, even though he was a young child when his father died. He held to his father's ideals. But yet he did have this commitment to Caesar. I mean, he had made an oath to Caesar that he would serve Caesar even to the shedding of his very life's blood. So this causes a great deal of conflict and confusion in his life and in his mind. And Lucius is on this search. He's looking for truth. Where is the balance? Where is the truth? What is the truth? He's searching diligently and trying to find the answer, and he hasn't found it. And he's starting to wonder if indeed such an answer exists. And that's why we see God in his providence has arranged for Lucius to be transferred to the upper Judea area, where he will come face to face with the person who is the personification of truth. Lucius is seeking truth, and Lucius shall find what truth truly is. But right now, he is still in a terrible struggle. He's in a terrible struggle. But he maintains his father's beliefs, the belief. Craig S. Smith asks, do you think Lucius's journey will end in redemption? Oh, I know it will. I know it will end in redemption. He will meet the man who is truth. And what really will bring him and his servants to believe on Jesus, not just his words, not just his miracles, although Jesus actually performs a miracle for Lucius, 2 miracles as a matter of fact. But those things in and of themselves are not what bring Lucius and his family to a saving faith. What really does is the work of a Jewish doctor who, after the great battle, when so many Roman soldiers were injured and badly, there was one doctor in the citadel. After the battle, when all these wounded and injured Roman soldiers were brought up, he alone had to take care of all of them, and it was too much. So in came this doctor who was a Jewish doctor who worked in the city, and he helped them. And he helped save the lives of many of these Romans. And this act was so merciful that it got the attention of Lucius. And when he asked the man why he did what he did, because this could be considered treason by many Jews, the man explained that his life was changed by the teachings of a man he heard in the wilderness. And that started the ball rolling toward Lucius's redemption. Ella J. Causey asks, how does Lucius's family history and military lineage influence his character and perspectives, especially as a soldier of Caesar? Well, it gave him a great deal of discipline. The military is very good for that. It teaches you discipline. It gave him discipline. He had a life that was ordered. He learned loyalty. He learned esprit de corps with his fellow soldiers. You know, there's no greater bond than is forged between men who are at war together. There's a great bond that nothing in civilian life can ever match between men whose lives have been placed on the line together. Unfortunately, he saw some things that to him were just totally wrong, to his father were totally wrong, and this caused some internal conflict. Joyce B. Benson, as an old soldier seeking truth, what specific events or experiences led Lucius to question the existence of truth in his world? Well, as Lucius saw how Rome administered its conquered territories, enslaving people, even its subjugated territories. Many of these subjugated territories were horribly abused. They were taxed. People were just taxed without mercy. Yes, the Romans built some wonderful infrastructure, but did they build the infrastructure for the good of the inhabitants of that land, or did they build that infrastructure so that they could take that bounty from that land and use it for their own devices? So the things that he saw caused him a great deal of trouble and made him question, does Rome really have the answer? And is there a better way? Is this the only way that you can bring people together? By sword and by fire and by conflict? Is there a better way to bring the people of the world together? And these were questions that began to arise in Lucius's mind. He did not know the answer. He did not know how to make this a reality. But he would learn. He would learn. Well, my dear friends, I'll tell you, we're almost at the end of our time. I'm going to skip ahead to the part where Lucius is into, he does get to Judea, and we're going to skip ahead a little bit because I want you to see where he does meet the Master. He does meet the Savior, and what a tremendous impact Jesus had on his life in so many ways. I don't think there's a single person who ever met Jesus. Jesus even impacted the life of Pontius Pilate. Now, did Pontius Pilate become a believer? I don't know. Only God knows the hearts of men. Did he become a believer? I don't know. But Jesus even impacted the life of Pontius Pilate, as we will see. So I thank you so much for being with me. I sure do appreciate. Thank you for sharing your book to us. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for being with us, Red. I'm going to call you Red. I don't want to mispronounce your name. Thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. And thank you for your excellent questions, by the way. You asked very intelligent and excellent questions, and I appreciate that very much. Well, God bless you. Until tomorrow, I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same bat time, same bat channel. Take care and have a good day. God bless.